The champagne glass slipped in his hand, the stem cold, the rim trembling. Across the reception hall, laughter swelled like a tide, loud enough to drown the string quartet's polite music. It was the first time David had seen his ex-wife since. The divorce papers were signed, a year ago, almost to the day. She stood at the center of the crowd, radiant in ivory silk, her new husband's hand resting possessively at the small of her back. Their eyes met for half a second. She smiled. Not the warm kind he shouldn't have come. That much was clear. The moment her brother intercepted him at the door. "Why are you even here?" the man had asked, voice low but sharp enough to cut. The invitation had come from his son, Alex, not from her. Alex had insisted, said he wanted his father to meet the new family. As if the word family could be reissued like a driver's license. Now, David stood near the edge of the polished dance floor, watching waiters in black vests glide by with trays of wine he didn't want. Every so often, he caught a glance from the new in-laws. Whispers, tight smiles, a tilted chin. He knew that look. Pity dressed as politeness not a tap on. The microphone silenced the room. Her cousin began a speech, her words sugar-coated and dipped in venom. "We're so grateful for the people who've been truly supportive through every challenge," she said, eyes sweeping right past David. "And for those who knew when to step aside." The crowd chuckled. David set his glass down before. His hand betrayed him. Alex was across the room, tense, watching. The air between father and son held something electric, something waiting. And then he saw the bride's brother start moving toward him again, this time with purpose. The brother stopped just short of David, a smirk pulling at the corner of his mouth. "Look," he said, leaning in as though this were a friendly chat. "You've had your time. Let her be happy now. No need to cling to what's over." David didn't answer. The music had resumed, a slow waltz, and he could feel the beat in the floor under his shoes. Across the room, Alex's eyes followed every movement, jaws set like stone. Then came the second wave. Her mother appeared, pearls glinting under the soft lights. She offered a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "David, I'm sure you understand. There's no place for bitterness tonight. If you truly loved her once, you'll let her go completely. That means letting us all move on, without the shadows of the past hanging over this day. Let her go completely." The words landed heavier than they should have. Not because of the woman in the white dress, but because of the boy, no, the man, standing near the cake, his son, who had been slipping further from him since the divorce. Alex finally moved, crossing the room in quick strides. He stopped beside his father, putting a hand on his shoulder, not in comfort, but in warning. "Dad," he murmured under the music, "they're just trying to get to you. Don't give them the satisfaction." It should have steadied him. Instead, it ignited something. All those months of watching his son split between two homes, two stories of the same past. This was the moment it could all unravel. The speeches started again, another cousin making a toast that veered into personal territory. A few heads turned toward him, and the laughter sharpened. David's throat tightened. He wasn't sure if it was shame, or the first flicker of anger that would change the rest of the night. The clinking of silverware on glass called the room to attention again, but this time it wasn't for a toast. The bride's brother stood with a folded sheet of paper in his hand, his smile thin and deliberate. "I've prepared something special," he announced, glancing toward David. A little history lesson for the happy couple. David felt. Alex stiffened beside him. The brother began to read aloud, not about love or the newlyweds' future, but about debts. Business debts, personal debts. Twisted, half-true accounts of the years David had spent holding a failing company together, the same company that had eventually collapsed under him. He made it sound like David had been reckless, selfish, even dangerous. Laughter bubbled from one corner of the room. A few faces shifted uncomfortably, but no one stopped him. This wasn't an accident. This was a public execution disguised as entertainment. David's fingers curled into his palm. His gaze locked on the man's hand gripping the paper, the casual way he flicked it between lines. It wasn't just the humiliation, it was the fact that someone in this room had given him that information. Someone close. A soft ping in his pocket broke the moment. He pulled out his phone under the table and saw the message, a scanned image of a legal document. His name, his signature. Only, it wasn't his signature. The sender was unknown. The subject line read, "They're trying to move the last piece of land." His chest went cold. That land, the one asset untouched by the divorce, wasn't just property. It was the promise he'd made to his father and to Alex he looked up to. Find the bride's brother watching him from across the room now, the paper still in his hand. The smirk deeper. It was no longer just about being humiliated. Someone here had crossed a line they couldn't uncross. David stepped outside, the muffled hum of the reception falling away as the cool night air wrapped around him. He needed space, needed air that wasn't thick with judgment and laughter. Across the manicured lawn, fairy lights swayed in the breeze, casting small halos on the grass. Alex followed, his shoes crunching softly over the gravel. "Dad, what was that on your phone?" His voice was low, cautious. David handed it to him. Alex's brow furrowed as he scanned the image, his jaw tightening. "This is forged. They're trying to make it look like you signed it over to them." David said nothing. His gaze drifted toward the horizon, where the silhouettes of old oaks stood black against the sky. He could still see his father's hands, calloused and sure, pressing the property deed into his own all those years ago. Never sell it. Not for anyone. Inside, another cheer rose from the reception hall. It sounded distant, like it belonged to another life. Alex spoke again, quieter now. "You don't deserve this. You've done nothing but give to them, to all of us." He hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry I let Mom talk about you like that. I should have stopped it." David turned to look at him. For the first time in months, the boy's eyes weren't divided. They weren't carrying two versions of the truth. They were steady, clear, almost pleading. A long silence stretched between them. Then David reached into his wallet and pulled out a creased photograph. Alex at 10 years old, standing on that same piece of land, grinning with dirt on his knees. He pressed it into his son's palm. "I can't keep saving people who would watch me burn," David said, his voice steady. "But I'll protect what matters." Alex closed his fingers around the photo. "Then let's do it." 2 days later, the courthouse hallway smelled faintly of old paper and polished wood. David stood at the clerk's counter, a pen in his hand, Alex beside him. The document before him was simple in appearance, almost ordinary. But once he signed, the land would no longer be his. Not legally, not on paper. It would belong to a preservation trust, locked away beyond the reach of any family member, forever. Alex read over the text one last time. "Once this is filed, no one, not Mom, not her husband, can touch it." David nodded. "No one." He placed the pen down slowly, the final line of his signature curling across the page. When they stepped outside, the morning was cool and bright. Across the street, a wedding photographer was arranging a bridal party, laughter ringing out as they posed. The sight pulled at him for just a moment, not with regret, but with the strange weight of knowing he'd stood in similar joy once. Before it had curdled, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number again. "You'll regret this." No name, no threat spelled out. Just the kind of emptiness that comes when someone realizes they can no longer control you. He slipped the phone back into his pocket. That evening, David sat in his kitchen, the same oak table where he'd signed countless checks, paid off debts, and bent under the weight of other people's needs. Now, for the first time in years, the table was bare except for 2 mugs of coffee, his and Alex's. They didn't speak much. They didn't need to. From the window, he could see the late sun brushing gold over the horizon, where that stretch of land lay, untouched, safe. "They can't take it from us now," Alex said quietly. David smiled, faint but certain. "They never could. They just didn't know it yet."